Hey, this is Tony behind the camera for WUNAX, and we have Ben here. We're going to talk about 5 questions that we have ahead of Nationals for Yu-Gi-Oh! NAWCQ. Okay, let's just jump right into it with what we think the top decks are coming into NAWCQ 2025. Give us your 3 top picks.
Okay, well, number 1 for sure I think has to be Mitsurugi Yugioh. If you just look at the results from the past few Nationals events we've had, as well as Vice Ecuador, I think it's really important to note the current trend for hand traps is a lot of people are starting to main deck 6 Charmers as well as Droll, which should just go to show the amount of power that deck has is that low impact hand traps really just don't do anything to the deck anymore, and so you really just need to open like a blowout card to be able to stop that deck, and the boards are just absurd. Like Detonator with Twins, with the Murakumo Prayers, post side they have Purification as well, and the potential to hand rip you or search for a nib is just really, really powerful, and so I think that would probably be the number 1 deck for sure, I think, going into Nats. And that deck also gets a slight boost, as well as all the decks that run X. There's a new rank 5, I can't think of his name in Duelists Advance, but basically just makes your X even better for board breaker by singing to the grave. It'll pop a set card on their field, so you also just play into the mirror match board as well, a lot better, as well as Malice, just being able to trade with their back row. As far as the second best deck I think is, I would say Malice. Obviously with Mitsurugi Yugioh, I'd probably group that and Pyramid together. They have different strengths. But yeah, with Malice, I definitely think it's the second best deck. I think Malice probably has the best game 1 in the format currently, since people are main decking Lancia. Cards like Broly and Droll just don't really do anything in the Malice deck, which is why I think it could be a really solid option going into the Nats format. Just being able to have immunity to really powerful cards, and then now that less people are playing extra copies of Nib, or an early Imperm is less likely to happen unless you play the mirror on your Dormouse, so you just have a lot of good lines of insulation. So as long as you have a game plan for the Fua, or they just don't open it, or you have a counterplay of the Fua, like an Ash or Call By, like you're set to go. As far as the third deck goes, there could be a handful of decks. I would, if we're separating Pure Mitsu and the Mitsurugi Yugioh decks, I would probably put that somewhere in that spot. But I think after those 2 decks, there's just a pile of decks that could be in that conversation. Vanquish Soul, Mermail, man, the list goes on. Memento is another good one. Yeah, there's just a huge list of decks that kind of are in that other category, I think, that are really powerful. But because there are multiple like Yugioh and Mitsurugi variants, I think those all are kind of in that top 3 list as well. Like those are definitely the 2 decks to look out for sure. So,
would you put Fiendsmith Yugioh in that top 3 somewhere, or would you say that Fiendsmith engine is going to fall off coming in?
I wouldn't say it's going to fall off. I mean, there'll be for sure people playing the deck. I don't know how popular the Yugioh version is necessarily. Like for me, if I'm going to play Fiendsmith cards, I'd much rather play a deck like the Mitsurugi version, where like you have a little bit better of a game plan into Fua specifically, or Perule. Like both your engines both have counterplays to like the other Charmer you can get hit with, which is really good. But yeah, and then also Fiends sees a little bit of play in the Memento deck, depending on which builds you see. So it'll be here and there, but as far as like contenders, I don't think Fiends and the variants are going to be a huge threat going into the format. So,
gotcha. So our second question of the 5 ahead of NAWCQ 2025 is, what of the decks that are available to players for NAWCQ, of the decks that we have not mentioned, which one do you think is most likely to top the event? So leaving out, you mentioned Memento, Mermail, Vanquish Soul, Yugioh variants, Fiendsmith variants, and Mitsurugi and Malice variants. What do you think off the radar deck might top the event?
I think a really good sleeper deck going into the event, there's a couple of them, and so this one does play Yugioh cards, but the Dododo like deck, the Yugioh, whatever you want to call it, those cards are really, really good in a Yugioh. They have a solid game plan and a Droll, and so playing that pure with Yugioh I think is pretty powerful, as well as the Herald cards are also a sleeper as well. But again, involving Yugioh cards. If we want to talk about a deck that's just standalone, that doesn't play any of these other engines, that's just standalone really good, I think Lunalight is definitely a sleeper deck. I definitely think we could see that deck take a spot or 2 in Top Cut. That deck's end board is almost unbreakable for almost every deck in the format. So if it does combo, like, you just win the game most of the time. He's able to play Impulse, so the hand traps he can play are really good. I think the deck's really only problem that I have noticed through just observing it as well as playing it myself is you have to play over 40 most lists to be able to fit the amount of non-engine you want. But and because of that, the deck doesn't have a tremendous amount of starters, so your consistency kind of becomes a factor in that deck. But when it plays, it's a very powerful deck, and so I think that could definitely be a sleeper deck I would expect to see in Nats.
Gotcha. Okay, number 3 on our list Is there going to be a large impact from the set release of Duelist Advance coming into the format, or do you think that these decks will pretty much play the same as they have for the rest of the format?
So I think there will be somewhat of an impact onto the format. It won't be as grand as last year's Nats was, where obviously Phoenix just came in the format and quite frankly just wrecked everything. It just kind of turned the format upside down and really changed things. And then also another big thing is the people are mentioning is this set doesn't come out like the week of Nats like it did before. So people will have an opportunity to play with the cards for a few weeks IRL before the actual event, which is good. But as far as like impact on that set goes, like the exceeds I mentioned earlier, the X can send off to pop a back row that set. But also like the Vanquish Soul deck I think is very, very well suited into the Mitsurugi matchup, just because of the fact they have the ability to set the Vanquish Soul trap, the Snow Devil, I think is what it is. Yeah. And so the Snow Devil allows it to where your Vanquish Souls can't be destroyed by card effects, which is really powerful in the Murakuma and Detonator. And then also as well, like I mentioned earlier, the Luna Light deck I think is like a fairly solid pick. Again, like definitely more of a rogue option, but it'll be in the room for sure. There are some other archetypes that come in Duelist Advance that I don't necessarily think will have a large impact, but it also depends what TCG exclusives we get as well. If it's anything like Mitsurugi, then like it could be a fairly high impact. So we'll just have to wait and see on that and see what kind of impact the set has. So,
gotcha. Okay, question number 4. Of these late-breaking changes with Luna Light, Vanquish Soul, do you think that there will be any late-breaking changes or advancements to the main deck hand trap lineups or tech cards that we're seeing in the format? Do you think Duelist Advance will change how people build their main decks, or do you expect to see some of the same hand traps, same tech cards?
I would expect to see more of the same, realistically. I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be enough conclusive data or evidence before Nats to determine that Mitsurugi, Raizu, and Pure Mitsu just aren't the best decks in the room. And so because of that, I still foresee the 6 Charmy Droll lineup kind of being pretty popular, because at the end of the day, you have to see high impact hand trap to stop those type of decks. Or else the cards like Ash and Firm just don't really trade well in the deck. And so I foresee that probably being the case still going into Nats, unless Mouse just has some sort of crazy breakout, which I don't envision happening. And the other decks coming out of the new set, I don't think are going to be waves enough in the format to warrant making any sort of changes to the main deck hand trap lineup. So I think tech-wise, as far as the main deck goes, I think it's going to stay relatively the same.
Got it. So more of the same. Okay, our last question. Do you expect to see any late developments or tech choices or changes in the side deck to combat decks like Vanquish Soul, Luna Light, or any of the other cards that we may see coming out of Duelist Advance?
So one advancement that's come recently in the last weekend or two that I have noticed, and if you get a chance to watch it, Christian Uran's deck profile from Ecuador, I think is a really good insight in this, and I think it's a trend you're going to see moving forward with a lot of pro players, is that in the Raizo deck, when Charlie won the YCS, it was very popular to run Featherstorm, and I still think you're going to see a lot of that, because at the end of the day, Featherstorm is probably one of the most unfair cards printed if you can resolve it in Yugioh. But I think G mentioned in his video, but also a lot of people have knowledge is that if you set that castle in the Featherstorm, sometimes you give up your follow-up because you're usually under draw in most cases because of that. And so because of that problem, people are actually starting to want to side into more high impact, or not higher impact than Featherstorm per se, but high impact traps that don't necessarily require setup. So things like Judgment, Warning Strikes, but not just like one set of them, playing like 5 to 6 counter traps in the side deck, because I think because so many people are playing all these high impact hand traps, they're very easy side up for really powerful traps when you go first games 2 and 3. And so I think that's a really powerful trend that I think we're going to continue to see moving forward, because not only those cards play really well into the top decks, but they play even better into the rogue decks. And so that's like a big change I would expect to see, as well as, I think there's some room for it now for back removal on the side for like Lightning Storm and Feather Duster, but I actually think we're going to see less of that, because I think more and more people that don't necessarily haven't been topping or going to these events are going to start to realize that like cards like those just aren't necessarily good in the top decks of the format. So,
gotcha. And then just a bonus yes or no question, and maybe we'll do a follow-up video on it.
Okay. In
the recent YCS history, they've made a habit out of announcing ban lists at large events. Do you expect to see a ban list at NAWCQ 25? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, you do expect to see a ban list.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that means we have a follow-up video in the works. Last thing you guys need to do is drop one of your questions ahead of NAWCQ down below, and we will get to those comments and we will answer those questions for you. And look forward to more content from us coming up between now and NAWCQ time. Like, comment, follow, subscribe, all those things for more great WUNAX content. Thanks, Ben. This is Tony. We're signing off.
See you guys.